True self energy experience here at transCODES. So wonderful to have you guys here, especially those of you who are here live right after this experience, this inner experience. And just a few words about this and why I have been facilitating this for over 12 years now. The inner experience of your self is what we are here for discovering. And it is not a new discovery. People like me are not showing you your true self. We are helping you to remember this inner connection. And it seems like this time right now, here in November 2024, is quite auspicious. It's very interesting. If you've watched or read my forecast for November, I said something about a significant change, a pivotal time in our lives, sort of setting the tone for the next 20 years. How can someone like me or other people who are in this sort of business of helping people to connect with themselves say these things? This has to do with the greater field that we are all connecting with, the greater consciousness, if you will. Yeah, this indicates to us that there is sort of a plan there is sort of a succession, there is a developmental sort of proceeding that is occurring, larger or greater than we can see this just from our own personal perspective. And that's the part that is so elusive for us. And as we started out this session here today, the first thing that came up for me, regardless of forecasts and whatever, this is what we do this for. This is the actual practical experience of these energies that come in every month. I noticed that there was a lot of confusion in the field. Confusion around the purpose. Yeah, why do we connect with our true self? What is true self? What is all this about? Why do we need to practice this? Isn't it enough to just acknowledge that there is something like a true self, perhaps for some of you a little more refined, like a higher self, a true self, a conscious self? Yeah. Is it not enough to have that recognition that there is one, and then we fulfill our task or off we go? No, it's not. Yeah. So as I said earlier, people like me, people like Cindy, like Astrid, who helped with holding this field for us here, people coming together from all over the world, connecting with their true self. We help you guys to remember this connection, to remember, well, more or less, what it's actually truly about here in our life experience. And when this confusion comes in, yeah, it shows us that there must be a lot of distractions. There must be a lot of things going on in our life, yeah, that pull us away from this inner experience of ourself. And many of you have already fully realized for themselves that a life lived just based on, say, material goals, physical goals, is leading to all kinds of issues, such as, the fear of death, the fear of not enough, the fear of not living up to the task. Yeah, it creates all kinds of performance issues with us because all we can do is compare ourselves to others. And what do we see when we compare ourselves with others? Yeah, we see what everybody is better than us. Yeah, everybody has what I want. And we don't realize that it is for us to aim for that, not for us to determine that there's not enough left for me. Yeah, this is a lot of times how we see the world, guys. We see the world from a perspective of scarcity, like as if there's only a certain amount of love, a certain amount of money, a certain amount of happiness or inner peace available, and others seem to be better at this and snatching it away from us. And so we end up in a place of sort of defeat and doubt and fear. And this is what creates the confusion in us. This is where we lose sort of the true purpose of this life's experience. And when we do this connecting with our true self, which is a silent meditation and energy experience for us, the first thing we will connect with is something like this scarcity, something like guilt or shame or not good enough. And it takes a little bit of patience. It takes a little bit of breathing through this and learning to accept that there is sort of these layers in us that first pull us into this physical experience, this external experience of life where we compare, where we look at others, where we wait for something from the outside to happen. And this takes a little bit. How long did it take you? How long did it take you to get through this initial sort of onslaught of thoughts, thinkingness, or perhaps sort of sad emotion, or I don't want to preempt your experience because this is what we're here for. 33 minutes, Cindy? Yeah. How long did it take you? Did you guys notice this? That there is sort of an initial, I want to say barrier almost, into going into your sort of inner experience? You noticed this too. Okay, I see your guys' responses here online. Did you actually pay attention to roughly how long it took you until it shifted? Maybe it took 55 minutes for you. This is very, very common, guys. Yeah? So if you are not in, say, a daily practice, okay, and I see this in energy sessions all the time, it can happen that you spend, like the majority, almost the entire 60 minutes wrestling with these barriers, with these resistances. You're either coming in from your mind or coming in from your emotions, making it hard to feel yourself. Yeah, like constantly just focusing on your thoughts. Yeah, identifying with your thoughts or identifying with the emotions that are coming up with you. And it isn't until the end of the session nears that part of you finally decides to let go of holding on to this. It's very, very interesting, human psychology in this way. They're giving ourselves permission to let go of all these identifications. A lot of times happens in the very last few minutes of such an energy session. Yeah, 33 minutes, about half an hour. I didn't look at the clock, but it felt about 15 minutes for you, Linda. And then you felt a shift, then you felt a rush of energy at that point. Interesting. Let's talk about this a little bit. When you noticed that this was shifting in you, how did you feel the shift? Linda felt it through a rush of healing energy coming in. Now, healing energy for you, can you describe this? Do you dare to come on live here to describe what a healing energy feels like to you?
It was very unusual. It was like an insulated blanket came in sideways and just sort of melted through my body.
Wow, I like that description. I can feel what you're saying. Mm-hmm. And that felt healing, soothing, or calming. Is that what it made you feel like?
Yeah, it felt all of that. I almost felt like I connected with maybe the group, and it just felt warmth and peaceful and safe and, well, healing.
Very cool. What are some other experiences of shift? Like when you could feel that you were moving from, the identification with your thoughts, or you were thinking, or the identification with your emotions. How did the shift feel like or come about for you?
Mine went straight into the physical. When stuff starts shifting, I start sneezing, I start
I
yawning,
was just going to say,
I start stretching, and then it's like the dam just breaks loose. And that's when it's like it opens up the space for what Linda just described.
I was just going to say, for me, a lot of times it comes to like a big sigh or a big yawn, or something happens in my body. Maybe my body wants to shift the way I sit, or there is a sort of it feels like it's relaxing. I'm starting to relax into myself. Yeah, Ema is sharing here. I felt the same, safe and comfortable. Yes, ready for the next steps. Mm-hmm. Yes, a lot of times your body will indicate this via your energy centers. So if you're not familiar with the energy centers in you, by the way, you can all request here. I'm going to show this to you on the screen. Our free chakra charts. Okay, they explain how the energy centers work and give you lots of different charts that allow you to identify sort of what physical sensations are going with which energy centers and the meaning of them, and also here exercises. So if you don't have this yet, guys, there's a link where you can get this in automated email, but you can also just text it here in the Daily Sacred 7 Hour Skype thread, and I will send it to you. You just need to put your email address down there. Yeah, so a lot of times we feel this shift, which is actually an energetic shift, all right, through our body. Yeah, and then as our body sort of relaxes, as our energies, as I would say, as someone who works with energies, start to flow a little better, they start to sort of become more sensible for me, okay, something else starts to happen here. Ema, you said ready for the next steps. Yeah, so this is what we call a shift. Yeah, a shift is something where we shift from one way of experiencing ourselves to another, or from one way of identifying self with another. This could also be something mundane in your practical life where, you have a moment of desperation where, you want to throw the towel and everything is just bleak and dark and bland, and all of a sudden this changes. A lot of times I have this when I'm really, really tired, I don't know if you guys can or have similar experiences at the end of the day when I'm a little bit exhausted and when my life force, my etheric life force is kind of used up. I have a tendency to feel a little bit more like, oh, what is all this for? And, it's harder for me to see purpose. And when I wake up in the morning after I had a good night's sleep, the world looks completely differently. And this is something that our ancestors knew. They basically, referred to this as sleeping over a problem, perhaps sometimes also allowing solutions come in through our sleepings, through our dreaming. Yeah, and this is something that you guys are self-identified energetically sensitives that you guys might already be aware of. So the same process occurs or can occur when we meditate or even just contemplate, perhaps go take a walk out in nature or sit under a tree or bring about a conscious shift so that our perception basically shifts along with it. And this is the part that we need to understand when we are seeing ourselves as these material beings only, with the five senses only, with our thoughts and our emotions and our body sort of being the only three components of who we are. We can easily get stuck in the limitations of that physical, of that material perspective. And that's why we need the reminder that there is more. There is more than just our physical, emotional, and mental in us. In fact, there is so much more. We call this basically the I, the consciousness in us. Yeah, the conscious me, the witnesser of all the other three layers. Actually, today I had enough time during the session to pull out a few slides for you, okay, so that we can do this in a more systematic way like we often do in our workshops. All right, I want you to look at this here real quick. You see, we have our physical 3D body, that is dominated, that is identified, as a matter of fact, through our survival, through our instincts, and also through fear. It's a very, very fundamental kind of fear, the fear of surviving, and it therefore is all focused on acting, on doing, fight, flight, or freeze. Then we have the second layer of who we experience ourselves as in the material, and this is still material, guys. I know you don't like hearing this, but your emotions are, for the most part, physiological. Yeah, they are physiological. They are driven by your feeling soul, your astral body, okay? And they link you in to the desires, the yearning, the passion, the drive of wanting to do something. Yeah, it's the desires, but it's still when it's just sort of as your fundamental drive, it could be something like greed or lust, okay, like associated with the 7 deadly sins, where you really just, feel compelled, okay, or almost like a compulsion to do something. Yeah, that's what your emotions are. Yeah, they are linked to this, and you can tell, especially now when we talk about the mental layer, the mental body that you are, by the way, the emotional body also carries all your trauma, which is why it can be so strong and why it can be so difficult for you to overcome the compulsions that come out of this layer, this emotional body. Okay, but for the most part in this day and age, we are actually caught in something else, namely in our mental body, in our heads, okay, where we see the world through constructs, yes, and abstracts. It's our thinking. This is linked to our etheric body. And here we basically make ourselves dependent on, what we call conditioning, what we have been programmed with, and also what we have learned as coping mechanisms, as crutches, as, in form of these narratives that we have. I can't do this because, or if only this, then I could, or because he or she is doing this or that, all right, it's doing this and that to me. So these constructs, these narratives that we create, they are natural, they're normal, but they're still very, very sort of low in consciousness. It isn't until this fourth layer, the witnesser in you, that can observe your physical, that can observe your emotional, that can observe your mental ongoings, so to speak, your conscious eye, until that is being brought into the equation, okay, that you begin to realize that the physical, emotional, and mental body are actually something that you can influence, that you can master from within your own consciousness. And that is where the true self comes in, guys. The true self is not sort of the confession self, where you have to sort of confess to yourself all the wrongdoings, of your emotional or mental or physical urges. No. The true self is the mediator between you and something that is way higher. Higher as in not just sort of higher dimensional. This is not really a word that I like, but higher in power. It has more power than the physical, emotional, and mental. The physical, emotional, and mental, just so you understand, are bound to this material experience that you're having. They can be they can be grouped together as your body mind, okay? They are fundamentally, linked to this lifetime only. And it is, your consciousness that can perceive things outside of this particular lifetime. Which is why so many of you energetically sensitives intuitively understand that there is a layer in you that can supersede or that can circumvent, the binds that you have to the physical, emotional, and mental in you. That's in the beginning of your journey, the impulse to connect with something. I guess we would call it soul. In the beginning, you just call it something, okay? So if you want to, you can see the true self as sort of the messenger of your soul, that informs you in very basic form that you are more than just your body, your emotions, and your thoughts. And this is, when we then become sort of aware that there is, something inside of us, that is not bound to like how much money we have, how much people like us, or what, girlfriend or boyfriend we have, or what job we have, but that there is more. And this, we know this through science, okay, is something that all humans have in common. This impulse, okay, to actually connect with or search for the spirit being in you, your soul being a spirit being, is what all humans have in common. And it's also the big differentiator toward with animals. Okay, animals don't have that, and that's where sort of the journey begins. When you walk on this path of trying to connect with your consciousness, with your conscious eye, you will discover a lot of issues with that, because you will discover that you're kind of up against this. So when I asked you earlier, how long did it take you to shift, from, sort of what you feel as a little bit of a struggle, to follow through on going a little bit deeper into yourself. I was referring to the red, orange, yellow layer here. I was referring to the physical, emotion, and mental binds or identifications. And when that shift occurs, and this is something that we need to practice, okay, because in the material, in this day and age, we can easily forget that we are actually a spirit being. But when the shift occurs, something big happens in us, and all of a sudden, Linda, you called it a healing energy, or inner peace, or warmth, or we are beginning to feel connection with something outside of the physical, emotional, and mental. And this is sort of subject of, what we're practicing when we connect with our true self. We want to get here, all right, connect with our I, connect with our true self, so that, and now is where it gets interesting, so that a shift can occur. And this shift is allowing us to do and to feel and to sense and to choose things in a new way. We begin to realize that which we were seeking, the spirit being in us, or the true self in us, or the soul in us, isn't actually outside of us. That is not out there. It is actually in here, and it's actually at the core of who we are. And the physical, emotional, and mental is just a tiny part of that. It's just a current condition, if you will. And once you get that part, you understand why people like myself, Cindy, Astrid, and all of you here who are coming to these regular exercises where we bring in the remembrance, where we consciously try to help ourselves to shift out of this material, physical fixation into what is truer, namely the simultaneous existence of our consciousness, our true self with our physical. And then perhaps, we do this in the workshops, we do this in the courses, we do this in the energy training club, that you can choose to participate in, to go a little deeper. You will realize that, wait a minute, the greater self, the higher self, the one that I am actually here to experience through the physicality, okay, that it stands at the center of all that I am. And ultimately, the goal is to learn to let go of these binds to the mental, to the emotional, and to the physical. And this is then what we call the journey, or, what many of you have already discovered is not sort of a ladder, or like an ascension in the sort of linear way, but it is something that reminds us of the circle of life. It is a circular journey that in the process, as we go through, these circles of accepting, aligning, discerning, disrupting, bringing in new courage, disciplining ourselves, learning to trust, to allow, to correct, to surrender, to fully own who we are, and being fully present, to finally connecting with who we truly are. This is a circular journey that leads us to our higher self. And what happens every time we sort of push through these barriers is that our perception changes. And I've been asked this many, many, many times. How do I know that my perception has changed? Well, here is a practical way of discerning this. When you are bound to your physical, your emotional and your mental only, when this is all you can perceive about yourself, the material self, and nothing outside of it, you are automatically pulled into powerlessness, because you have to face the inevitability of death, of you not being in control, not only when this life, the physical, emotional, mental, that is bound to, this existence, not only when, but also how, etc. That is a, fundamental sort of human condition that we all have to contend with. And here, sort of in consciousness development, we associate this with the ego level, with, just experiencing yourself at the lowest level. And so you will understand later that, the ego is the seed of your true self, is the seed of your higher self. But not everybody chooses to refine, to clear, to purify, to ennoble this understanding of yourself. Yeah, it is very, very easy to get pulled into the ego perception, which is based on the material only, and to get stuck there. And how do I know what my perception is like? Well, it's very simple. Your perception is primarily dominated by you seeing the world as things are happening to you. They're done to you. Yeah, and fundamentally a pessimistic worldview or life view, because you cannot be in control. And a lot of times the ego then comes up with very elaborate coping mechanisms, like trying to control things, becoming very OCD, becoming very performance-oriented, constantly sort of feeding yourself with a negative self-image, with, negative inner self-talk. That is a sign, that is, sort of showing you that your perception is bound to your ego. And your ego is bound to your material existence and the inevitability thereof. Now, when a shift comes up, and this shift actually happens for most of us somewhere during puberty and early adolescence, we begin to discover the power of the mind. We begin to discover that, well, yeah, I mean, education and so forth helps me to see things in a different light. We begin to realize that, well, a lot of it has to do with how we frame things, how we choose to see things. I can look at it this way, and I can look at it this way. This is sort of the power of our linear mind. It's a very important part of our development, that we discover that our mind actually has quite a bit of power over how we perceive things. And also, this is sometimes what you forget, the way we feel about things. So the way you think about things determines the way you feel about things. Most of you have this the other way around. You believe that it is the feeling that creates sort of the physical reality and the thoughts, but it is actually the other way around. It is what you hold in mind that produces sort of downward, the emotion, and then ultimately the physical manifestation. This is also why diseases and, all sicknesses actually come from what we hold in mind. This is very, very important for those of you who are suffering physical conditions. Not to say that it's all your fault and it's all in your mind or you're making this up. No, but it is to show you that the other, the counterpart of that, the healing energy that you described earlier, Linda, is actually already in you. It is just something that you really need to hold in mind. And how do we change what we hold in mind? Well, that requires a little bit of discipline. And in its highest form, it requires us to master our thinking, to be able to discern truth, not just through our preconceived beliefs, our mental structures, our unconscious programming, but also through how things actually feel, the quality of things. Like Like what does this make me feel? Does this feel warm? Does this feel expansive? Does this feel conducive to me? Or does this feel limiting? Does this feel contractive? Does this feel, cold and dark for me? Yeah, so until you begin your journey of conscious discernment, you will, through your linear mind, believe that, well, you are the shaker and the doer. You are the one that does that. Based on my thoughts, based on my idea, I did this. Like I said, this is something that we all go through in the course of our lives. We all go through this illusion that we are the ones doing things. Now, that said, obviously, through our acting, through our doing, we are bringing things into manifestation. That is not a question. But what makes us do things, such as our intentions, our motivation, our higher goals, that is often still blurry for us. This is where the confusion is. This is where I saw you guys today. Okay, yes, I understand the logic. I understand intellectually that it's important to connect with my true self. But how do I do this? And why do I do this? Okay, so if you're not entirely sure why and how, then you're right here, and this is wonderful because that's exactly where we want to be here. We want to understand that there is more than just the material reality. We want to understand that there's a spiritual reality to things, and that, not as an escape, but that there is, a way for us to supersede the material reality if we connect with this higher self of ours, via the true self, it's sort of stages of that, all right, that allows us to understand that there are other goals, there are other reasons, other purposes, if you will, for us to even having this physical experience. Such as karma, for example, your personal karma. You guys can all connect to this. You know what personal karma in your life sort of brings in. You can already see the patterns. You can see the repetitions. You can see things handed down through your family lineage. You can see things handed down through your tribal associations, your nation or your race or ethnic cultural groups. Okay, so there are some things that we obviously have to work through, okay, to get rid or to allow, okay, for these binds, okay, first the fear of death, and the physical, emotional, mental bind, then the karmic bind, to certain types of lessons, if you will, okay, to understand that, wait a minute, okay, my life is not happening to me. This isn't about surviving this life. This is the sort of this idea of immortality on the physical level. This isn't about living eternally in the physical. It's also not sort of about me sort of pushing, squeezing out the last bit of life force and longevity and, this whole sort of anti-aging movement is all driven here by the linear mind, that if it can just sort of drag this out a little longer, if we can just squeeze out a little more, if we can just look like 20 when we're 60, we could sort of overcome the inevitability of death. Right? This is literally what our society is trying to do. No, we are beginning to realize that our life is lived through us. It is lived. It has to be lived. It is something that is coming through me, okay, that wants to interact with this physical material world and bring me new perspectives, new perceptions, new insights. This is when we realize, and when we begin to accept that there is a spiritual reality to things, we begin to realize that there is a higher purpose. Yeah, and that karma isn't a bad thing. That there's a true reason and true purpose behind this that our own higher self chose. And as we're going through it, we are healing it. We are, sort of letting go of the resistance to it. We are overcoming it. Yeah, so we're realizing that going through things is the actual purpose of this physical experience of ourselves. And once we know how to build this bridge between the material and the spiritual world within us, and became able to let go of the binds through our mind, our emotions, and our body, we are beginning to feel the presence of our higher self. We're beginning to feel our individuality on a higher level. We're beginning to feel what we call, in spiritual science, the individuated soul self, or spiritual ID. I call it many different things, but you begin to develop an I, not just in the ego self, but in higher I. You begin to experience yourself as a soul being, as a spiritual being. And now a huge shift occurs, namely from seeking your soul out there externally, trying to connect with something outside of you. You're now beginning to realize that your physical existence is part of your higher self experience. That it is in you. It is a smaller part. It's you, that you are a being within a being. Within a being. And everything changes now. Yeah, this shift is huge. This is what we all aspire to. Yeah, in esoteric traditions, spiritual teachings, ancient spiritual teaching, this is called enlightened states. This is where you realize that life is happening as you are living your life as a true self. You are giving it purpose. You don't have to go out there and seek purpose. And just for those of you who are a little bit more interested in how the mechanisms are, this is a whole sort of workshop series that I'm trying to go through here in Fast Forward. But really the way this happens is that, when you begin to understand the simultaneousness of the physical and spiritual reality in you, and that you actually have the key, namely your own spiritual I, your higher self, your soul self, many different words, all mean a little bit something different, but when you're dealing with the barriers of your material existence, it doesn't matter what you call it. I like calling it the true self because it is sort of the mediator, until you've overcome, the mental barriers and the emotional barriers. Okay, that your physical existence sort of carries with as a bind. Okay, you cannot really feel this, but at some point, and this has to do with you educating yourself on things. This has to do with you listening to me right now. I'm not sort of telling you how it is. I am helping you remember there's an impulse that comes in through your higher self. Yeah, and that sort of opens up this seed in you. Yeah. At first, it's just sort of this ego in you, okay? But it opens it up and makes you want to connect to something greater. And it starts working through your etheric body first. It delivers impulses to you that remind you that there must be more out there. Kind of like how my journey went from, like science, and materialism to awestruckness of how all this came into existence, this impulse, all right, through your mind that there must be more. And it works through your emotions. You can feel this as you're sort of yearning. You're yearning for eternal connection, Cindy, as you called it earlier. Yeah, the yearning for the warmth and the light that you have an inkling of, but you can't really grip it. That can then, Linda, like you said, even be experienced as a healing energy. And it is a healing energy. But not just for your body. Yeah, it is a healing energy for you learning how to overcome these binds. So when we block ourselves, and this is the main human condition right now, partially through us forgetting that there is, a spiritual reality, which comes in through programming, through training, through sort of collective conditioning, if you will, but also mind control and social media is all very, very identified with the physical and the emotional. Then we cannot, this impulse from your higher self, from your I, this yearning for connection cannot permeate. It cannot be felt. All right? And that's then how we forget it. Yeah? And the same with if you're feeling so, your astral body is blocked because you'd rather escape into like the waterfalls and unicorns world, or you make yourself God basically, and all you live for is your desires. Okay, maximize money, maximize sort of love coming from others, trying to hold on to all this power and so forth. It cannot permeate you. So really what we are yearning for is this connection with our own higher self, which in and of itself is just like how the ego to a true self is the sort of the divine seed in us. Yeah, it is the higher self is the seed, okay, that makes us want to evolve, that makes us want to grow, to refine, to ennoble, to evolve. And that is what we need to understand, that our journey is not a journey of accomplishments, not in this life, but that what it actually is that we are seeking when we are feeling this yearning for eternal connection is actually, the growth into our higher potential, into what we could be, which is sort of a higher spiritual existence. But there is no shortcutting it. There is no jumping through this, by escaping from it. We have to go through it. It has to be lived through us, and this is the part that our ego resists. So that is all basically in a nutshell why it's so hard for us. Now let's talk a little bit about the role of your true self, just in a nutshell here, guys. We have entire workshops to cover this. The role of connecting with your true self, and therefore, basically bringing in the true purpose of your journey is learning discernment. And this is all things that I just mentioned here, just, made the slide during our session, just listed for you so that this confusion about why you should connect with your true self can be put aside, can be overcome. Yeah, you hear to accept that there is a physical reality within a spiritual reality, and to learn to overcome the limitations of the physical. And the first stage of that is to shift your perception or your perspective from external to internal, to stop seeking things on the outside. Yeah, and to allow yourself to shift your perspectives, to shift your energy. What we talked about here at the beginning, that you all experienced in this energy experience. That is the purpose. Okay? That's the first stage of what you want to accomplish, is to shift your perspective and with it your perception from this pure physical experience of yourself into the witnesser in you that connects you with your true self. And then as you keep going, and that's why I use all these terms, weave them in as I explain things, this shift then becomes a greater shift even. It becomes a shift from the pure material understanding of yourself to the spiritual. It's an inclusive. It's not exclusive. It's not that the material doesn't matter at all and only the spiritual matters. That is not what I'm saying. This is a very, very common misconception in New Age. The material matters a lot. It is the purpose of your spiritual experience in the physical. Okay? So it allows you to understand that there's a higher purpose, that there's higher values that you're supposed to bring into the physical. They're supposed to emerge within you, higher values, higher levels of worthiness. Yeah, recognizing what a miracle it is that you can, experience your higher self through your material existence. And then in the third stage, your discernment forms through realizing, that this isn't about quantity. This isn't about how much and how many. This is about quality. It allows you to shift your perspective on, what it actually is that you're striving for in life. Yeah, what you want to align to. What it actually is. Remember when we went through the life views, what it actually is that you want to see life as. Yeah, from quantity to quality. It isn't about how much money you have and how comfortable your life is and how many friends you have and how many likes you have. This is about how much you can feel your own higher self within yourself. How many times a day, if you will, but even that is not a matter of minutes or hours. Yeah, you're not supposed to sit there on a mountaintop meditating all day long. That is not connecting you more. It is to bring in the remembrance into everything that you do in life. And to ask yourself, what is the alignment of this? How am I aligned right now? Am I just doing this out of fear? Or am I doing this out of love? And then the next stage of learning how to discern these things and bring in sort of the ability to see truth from within yourself is to realize your own negativity, to realize, how your own, in the imagery of struggle and suffering in your etheric is actually producing it. And you begin to realize not only how easy it is to shift from negativity to positivity, but you also realize that, just, sort of blind positive thinking isn't going to get you there either. This is about discernment, remember? So it's about understanding that for as long as you hold a negative self-image, a negative worldview, a negative, life view, you are promoting dualism. You are promoting separateness. You are, cutting yourself off from life. Yeah, and once you understand that, life itself is sort of the vehicle, all right, and that your goal is not to be better than others or, them and us or things like that. Life, is hard. No. It is about connecting with it and overcoming the duality of life, overcoming the separation, recognizing that we're all on this journey. This is all coded into the true self invocation, that others are true selves too. And they may have entered this journey at a different part of the cycle, but it's still, a greater cycle for all of us. And this then helps us to understand what this actually means, to overcome duality. Masculine, feminine, good or bad, light and dark. Yes, these things all exist. We have to learn to discern them and understand that they are part of this physical experience, but not the spiritual experience. In the spiritual experience of yourself, you can stand in the middle. You can choose via your trained will to stay open, to recognize this. Oh yeah, that's like a dark force that is working through my mind. Oh yeah, that's Lucifer working through my feeling soul, wanting me to, escape or be special. But you don't identify yourself with it. Just like, oh, okay, I need to kind of balance this a little bit. Oh, I got to, just breathe a little deeper. Oh, I got to bring about a shift, in my body. Maybe the reason why I'm thinking this way is because I've read too much of this, or I've watched too much of this, video or podcast or movie, or I'm listening to the wrong people. Letting go of the identification with either or, black and white, anything that separates. And as a product, as a result of all of that, guys, you're going to realize that why you're here, why you're connecting with your true self, or why I'm suggesting this, that you practice this every day, every week, every month, several times a day. That the true purpose of your life, not just why am I connecting with my true self, I just explained all that, is to increase your capacity for love, for compassion, for the ability to feel balance, for the ability to feel neutrality, for the ability to bring about harmony, not just into your life, but also the life of others. Yeah. So that, in a nutshell, is the answer to your questions, your inner questions. You can see it's big. Yeah, and there's more to this. Yeah, those of you who come to the workshops will have learned, for example, that, these stages of us sort of learning to overcome the binds, and especially the fear associated with it, because fear it originates in our etheric field, but is, binds us to our drive, our instincts, and our physical experience, is, sort of the main adversary. And that there are exercises, that there are things that we can do, that we can practice. I don't want to go through this right now because we're already over time. I want to invite you to come more to these workshops that we do here. They're free for you, and learn these deeper aspects, through, just sort of ingesting it, through osmosis, through listening to them. There are over 800 videos on my YouTube channel, guys, that talk about this from all different angles and different perspectives over and over and over again. So to summarize all of this here and to perhaps help you or assist you to find some answers within yourself. Okay, remember this. The answers are in yourself. I'm just reminding you. Okay. Your entire life, this life, is about connecting with your true self. This is what your life is for. Okay? And I know you guys can all feel this because the seed in you is there. And now all you got to do is water it and give it light and warmth and talk to it, connect with it. Just like how you would, foster or cultivate a relationship with a friend or a family member. Yeah? Recognize it. Even acknowledge it. Just say hi. Maybe you don't know quite yet how to discipline these aspects in you. I'm telling you. But you actually acknowledging that there is this part in you that can sort of witness all the other parts of you. You already made more than the first step. Now it's just seeking that interaction, seeking, the inner guidance, seeking, this information flow via, your forming spiritual senses and organs. But it can't happen without a little bit of education, without a little bit of understanding how this goes. Yeah, so it's not just done by neglecting your physical 3D experience and just wanting to, experience the bliss sort of being with your true self. No, it has to be brought into your physical experience. This life is all about the inner experience of life, of your soul self through the physical. That is why you're here. So thank you everyone for trusting, for allowing this field to be formed, and my very special thanks to Astrid and Cindy, who understand the importance of facilitating this. And by the way, we have ongoing free daily sacred self meditations here, facilitated by these other wonderful facilitators, energy healers, conscious soul selves, okay, that provide this for you absolutely free. Okay, so check the links if you're watching the YouTube video of this, where you can go. There's a calendar on my website. Yeah. So with you doing this and remembering, you are also helping others. That's sort of what we are now about to discover here in this time. Yeah, is that we are all true selves. We are all in this together. Our job is to individuate as soul selves and bring this higher perspective, this higher life view that we discussed earlier, back into the collective. How? Through overcoming our separation. Through overcoming the tribalism, the my party, your party, my team, your team. Yeah, through overcoming this and bringing more unity and more harmony into this world. Thank you, everyone. Stay conscious. See you very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.